December 10th, 2025. Welcome back to the Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Now, if you missed the free masterclass that I did with Dr. Joseph Peck's Empower 2000, a link has been placed in the Rumble show notes. You also can find that on wealthcoachuniversity.com, a link that'll take you there, and you can visit that at your leisure. And I strongly suggest everyone view this, particularly those with investable assets and or cash to protect. And joining me today in just a moment is Rob Cunningham. I want to make a quick couple of announcements, very short. We'll jump right into things. We are in the process of launching a new website. It's the same domain name, jmcbroadcasting.com and or johnmichaelchambers.com. And the homepage has been reconstructed. There's one or two details that we still got to iron out, but it is live. And all the subsequent pages on that website, one day at a time, will be transformed. And by Christmas, we'll have the birth of a new website, Lean and Mean, Military, Intelligence, and Economic Reporting. I'm also real happy to announce we now have a premium portal. You can visit that after the show. Click on the link at jmcbroadcasting.com. Learn about the benefits of what you don't get on our free programming that you can get for a very nominal price at Premium Portal. All right, so that's my quick announcements. I'm going to set up maybe a 5-minute monologue here for those that miss my weekend war reports. And then we're going to bring on our guest, and we're going to jump into everything that's on your mind. Everything around us has been scripted. The governments, the elections, the speeches, even the news. What we've been living through isn't politics at all. It's a global psychological operation designed to control perception and keep humanity asleep. The curtain is finally falling, and the actors are losing their lines. This is the movie we live in. It's like the Truman Show. For decades, the illusion of democracy was maintained through theater. Every, quote, historic event was rehearsed, staged, and broadcast like a Hollywood film. The goal was not truth, but obedience. As George Carlin once said, we don't want free critical thinkers, we want obedient workers. Those awake saw the inconsistencies, identical phrases, mirrored storylines, repeated coincidences. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. We all know about the 4 a.m. talking points, don't we? Operation Mockingbird, our mind has become the battlefield. The CIA's Mockingbird network controlled global media for generations. It dictated what we believed, who we trusted, and what we feared. Every opinion we thought was ours was planted by repetition. We weren't informed, we were programmed. Let's talk about the fake, that's right, the fake inauguration that changed everything. On January 20th, 2021, the world watched, or at least they thought they did, Joe Biden inauguration. The sunlight on the camera did not match the weather data. Shadows fell in impossible directions. Experts confirmed the scene was pre-recorded. Reports later surfaced that it was filmed at Castle Rock Studios in California, not in Washington, D.C. The White House we saw on TV was a set. And there have been numerous glitches in the matrix for those that have been watching. From Biden's hand passing through a microphone to identical extras repeating across news feeds, the simulation keeps breaking. The production was never meant to face this level of scrutiny. The same Hollywood machine that created propaganda films now fabricates political reality. Why it had to be this way? Because you cannot tell the people the truth instantly. It must be shown. Why? A sudden revelation would destroy the social order. The, quote, movie was created to awaken the population slowly, using the same system that once deceived them to reveal the deception. I would assert here that's been going on now for the better part of 10 years for sure. Escalator event to this moment. President Trump's counter move. Executive orders 13818, you need to look them up, and 13848, you need to look them up, and 47 USC 606, follow Derek Johnson on the connecting dots of the codes. These executive orders quietly gave the military, that's right, it's a military operation, a wartime command structure, gave the military power to seize assets of traders, prosecute election interference, and take control of mass media in the name of national security. The true battlefield is not land or airspace. It is in the screen in front of us. This brings us to what the president has said, I don't know, I've lost count hundreds of times. Central casting, central casting, central casting and body doubles. President Trump's phrase, when he states they're straight out of central casting, was not casual. Many, quote, politicians and, quote, experts are literal actors paid to maintain a collapsing illusion. Multiple versions of Biden have appeared, without question, with different ears, voices, and gestures. The doubles perform, the real figures are gone. The global stage. It's not just America. This is a global defense war military alliance. President Donald Trump, Supreme Commander-in-Chief. It's not just America, it's across Europe, Canada, and Australia. Identical operations unfolded, cloned narratives, synchronized scripts, and manufactured heroes. Celebrities, anchors, and world leaders are being replaced or digitally simulated, while the original networks of control are dismantled behind the scenes. So those that say nothing's happening, everything's happening. Military precision, right on target. The end of the script, when the lights go out, and the fat lady is singing, and the truth is finally revealed, there will be no announcement. No media outlet will ever say, it was all a movie. We'll simply see it. The empty seats, the recycled faces, the silence from those who used to speak with certainty. We were never just a spectator. We were the audience, the target, and now the witness to the greatest awakening in modern history. That monologue in part was provided by Guardian Daniel R. All right, KUWL is a passion project launched in December 2022. Born from a spirit of curiosity, Rob Cunningham's thirst for truth and disdain for false narratives, he questions, researches, analyzes, interviews, educates, and opines on many, many critical, timely, and important issues. KUWL is an acronym for knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and life, experienced to the fullest. Rob's purpose is to leverage his experiences, insights, discernment, and vast network of remarkable friends to bring you as much value as possible. His personal background includes a business degree in management information systems, U.S. Air Force active duty as an instructor pilot with combat experience, and a top secret security clearance, 2 years as major airline pilot before unceremoniously being furloughed, 20 years in investment and mortgage banking as well experience, and more than 20 years owning and supporting a national leadership and sales development company. I'm honored to have Rob Cunningham in the Global Financial Reset. Please welcome Rob Cunningham. We're going to jump into a lot of important issues. Welcome, sir.
John, it's an honor and a privilege to be on this program with you, sir. Thank you for your service to humanity and all that you've done. I love watching you, and literally this is an early Christmas present for me.
Well, thank you. It's a gift for us all, and mainly a gift for those watching all across the world right now. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your service to this country in and out of uniform.
Yes.
On behalf of our viewers, I would express that. So let's begin taking a 40,000-foot view of this global financial reset that we and the rest of the world, for that matter, are mid-transitioning into. It's really huge and unprecedented, in my opinion. Outline for us, if you will, Rob, the transformation that is taking place right now. Again, from a 40,000-foot view, we'll jump into weeds as we go. Outline for us, if you will, the transformation that is taking place in banking and the currency itself. What are we stepping away from, and what are we stepping into? Take it away.
Yes, sir. We are transitioning from slavery and centralization and programming through lies and deception into truth and light and honesty. We're going from centralization to decentralization. We're going from a world where all of our sovereignty was taught to us did not exist, to regaining our sovereignty. And we're doing that through the monetary system of it's not more complicated than to see that light exposes dark, the lightness, the technology, the rails, the we are going from corrupt corporations to mathematical purity. And our trust is going to be in God's math instead of corrupt corporations. The evidence is going to be in 3 to 5 seconds, we'll be able to atomically verify whether mathematical equations are true or not. The actors are true or not. The wallets are real or not. The person is real or not. The ledger will record verifiable truths that will be there for accountability purposes for 1,000 years. And we will have an oath-bearing record of truth that holds all parties in the world accountable, whether you're an individual or a king, whether you're Obama or a dishwasher. And so math is math. It's from the lawgiver. And the transparency of math is going to free us from the lies and the BS of the centralized, demonic, central banking, Marxists and atheists that created the banking system and its beginning. I like to say, John, that Jesus didn't flip over the money changer tables for cardio. He did it because it was a RICO operation. He stood on the side of the hill. He watched these money changers give the naive people who were looking for a relationship with God. They were coming to Holy Week, and they were getting 5 and 10 cents on the dollar for their most valuable treasures. And the church or the temple that was supposed to be the Father's house was worshiping the money changers, and they were both protected by the politicians. And when Jesus flipped over the RICO syndicate, Jesus is not against business. He's not against commerce. He's not against trade. He's against fraud. He flipped over the fraud tables, and 5 days later they hung him on a tree. Today we have money changers on a global basis. We have politicians that are bought and paid for by the money changers. And unfortunately, we have a lot of religious organizations that are not equipping the angels to teach us what the laws and the principles of this universe are. So we have a lot of people that are unfortunately ill-equipped or unaware of the game that's being played on us. And the commanders around the world are waking us up to the actual rules of the game instead of the ones that we have been fed in the school.
So well said how you interwove, from my perspective, some deeply seated truths from Christ all the way up to what you call, there was this very powerful soundbite, the corrupt corporations to what? What did you say in the beginning? We're moving from corrupt corporations to what?
To mathematical truth. To mathematical truth.
Truth.
The lawgiver created the laws and gave us a law. Omniscience means omniscience. All laws come from the creator, and math is a law. I like to remind people Nikola Tesla didn't create math. It was just revealed to him, and he had 6,500 patents based on math, but math was a revelation to him, not a creation by him. Math is something we can say, when we say in God we trust, we can say, well, we can also trust the derivative laws that God created. I'm not going to trust the Rothschilds or the Federal Reserve, but I can place my trust in verifiable math.
Yes. Again, the theme, the overall encompassing theme, as I listen to your response to these questions, interweaves, well, first off, truth, which is what everything's about, and we know why, but also this reiterates and highlights that this is a spiritual battle between good and evil. The difference there, and it's been going on forever, the difference now, in my opinion, is we're grabbing the reins, and the game from the satanic controls is coming to an end. I want to bring us into another subject, Rob. Break down, if you will, just how the system that we have been trapped in since at least 1913, the inception of the Federal Reserve. Break down for us how the system we've been trapped in since 1913, how it works, and just how it has essentially enslaved us. The IRS that came in with the 16th Amendment with the Federal Reserve Act. Let's highlight what that's been like, because you know what? It's all we've ever known, and some people just consider it to be normal. It's not. Jump into that nightmare, if you will.
I want to start this out with letting you know that I had one of the greatest honors of my life to interview Mr. G. Edward Griffin. Okay. And I got to go to his home that he had been living in since 1962 this year. The year I was born, he
Nice.
moved into his home. And his wife of 71 years was there. So I spent an entire day with Mr. Griffin on top of reading his book. So um, let's start with the big lie. Okay. Well, the big truth. The big truth, John, is the single greatest, highest form of law in this world. The highest moral law on earth is mutual consent. You're a sovereign and I'm a sovereign. If you agree and I agree, and I'm delegated to be able to have a sovereign life and rule and self-govern, and you and I we want to trade chickens for peanuts, we can trade chickens and peanuts. Okay. There's not supposed to be a third party interloper regulator, an authority figure that gets to tell us what we can and can't do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have mutual means two.
Mm-hmm.
What we had was a sovereign nation with a sovereign treasury and sovereign citizens. So when the sovereign nation created this thing called a dollar, which was a unit of account and a store of value and a medium of exchange, it was for
Mm-hmm.
two parties to be able to trade. It's a trust system. It's, I don't want to take
Mm-hmm.
your chickens because I don't need any more. I've got chickens, but I need the money for the house that I built. So give me something that I can use to exchange for something I do need. Money is
Mm-hmm.
just a trust system. The Federal Reserve decided to be the third party in that mutual arrangement. They showed up, and instead of there being a treasury and a sovereign party, there was a treasury, a Federal Reserve, which was part of an NGO from another country that wasn't federal and had no reserves, and they introduced themselves in between the two-party system. And then they
Yes.
decided to pervert that process, steal, deflate, embase, tax, regulate, control. And it's a wealth extraction system designed to slowly steal our wealth through inflation, manipulation, regulation. And by the very usage of their product that had Federal Reserve note written on it, then anything that came out of their corporation known as the District of Columbia, we were consenting to their powers and authorities because we're using their currency system. And so everything that came along with that Federal Reserve note, traffic laws, driver's license, birth certificates, you name it, anything that came along out of the pipe, well, hey, you agreed to use our product, and so you consented. Well, it was not mutual consent. It was done in deception. It was done in secrecy. It was not done in full disclosure. So it was a fraud from day one. But they preyed on our ignorance. I mean, what does Christ say? My people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. They installed a third party system where there was never supposed to be three parties. And then they preyed on our ignorance and they entangled us in $38 trillion of debt and every idiotic rule known to man that has nothing to do with sovereign laws and principles. It has to do with their power and control.
Very well said. And of course, they funded both sides of many of these wars and laughed all the way to the bank, no pun intended. I want to comment on Mr. G. First off, that's fantastic. You met him. He's got to be 90, would be my guess. Hope he's well.
94. 94.
94. I worked with Mr. G 15 years ago when I had a 501c4 in Florida called the Save America Foundation. Had the opportunity to do a couple of conferences that we hosted, of which he was one of the keynotes, and dinners and so forth afterwards. What an incredible man! I would love to see the president put one of those medals of honor on him and Ron Paul, because these guys took the heat, especially Mr. G for his incredible body of work in that book you put up, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And those that are new and just coming aboard, and there's lots of them, Rob, welcome. We love you. Wake up to wake up to your life. You pick up a copy of Mr. G's book, Creature from Jekyll Island. It lays down the story that Rob just sort of combed through. That brings me to another sort of, and to our viewers, we're going to get into crypto. We're going to get into the dollar. We're going to get into a lot of things at QFS in a moment that are going to answer a lot of questions for you. But let's progress. So disruptive transformative actions are now well underway at present by Donald J. Trump and the administration, from the restructuring of the Federal Reserve itself and the IRS to tariffs and bringing foreign capital into the U.S., oil and so forth, exploration again, gas. Let's take on one at a time from your brief commentary and analysis. Let's begin with banking. Will there be the need? This is important to our viewers. Listen up. Will there be the need for banking as we know it today? You know, the big five, the central bank system, the brick and mortar buildings that we put our deposits on and hope and pray for the best. Will there be the need for banking as we know it once the new QFS system is, I know it's been tested, it's ready, I get all that, but obviously we're not all in there functioning yet. We are mid transitioning, and I consider this portion the danger zone. But let me get back to the question. So will there be the need for banking as we once knew it, once the new QFS is deployed? And what is your best guess, the estimated time frame, and that's a crystal ball question, that we will be functioning in this new system? And part three, and I'm happy to repeat them all, part three of this question is how do we get from where we are to where we will end up?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, John. And it's the answer fundamentally to question number one is no. As we know it, we're going to be transitioning from an account-based system where you've got 50 different accounts, insurance company, checking accounts, banking accounts, trust accounts, every other kind of account in the world, to a wallet-based system where a wallet is assigned to an individual as a sovereign soul, if you will. I have a wallet and I can pay from that back and forth. And it's not going to be based on admiralty laws and contracts and porous networks with servers and routers and antivirus software and hackability and vulnerability where we can be exploited, we can be spoofed, our identity can be taken, our title to our home can be stolen. All of this porous, old school blockbuster era type of contracts and admiralty law is going to give way to digital wallets and cryptocurrency and cryptographic security and much safer, either individually owned off-chain, if you will, or cold wallet storages, or individually segregated and custodied accounts that are not pooled at new banks that are going to have to be compliant with the new regulations. So the first part is we're going to a trust system that is going to be mathematically, computationally, cryptographically verifiable on a 24/7 basis. We're not going to have a trust me bro system. We're not going to have an admiralty law contract system. We're not going to have assets pooled in a general fund where one out of every $6 in America is at Bank of America. They show us a little computer screen, but all of our money's in there running around. And in their system, if the Bank of America collapses, which is part of the Federal Reserve, those Federal Reserve notes are a liability to us. They're a debt instrument to us, and they get to claim them. It's their property, not ours. A Federal Reserve note is owned by the issuer known as the Federal Reserve. Until we have Treasury dollars, John, it's not our property. The illusion is that it's our money. It's not. They can do what's called a bail-in. The Dodd-Frank Act changed everything around after 2008. So they're letting us use these dollars and spend them. But if you go in and you want to pull out 10 or 20 grand, see how hard it's going to be to take some of their money out of their account, or try to take money out of your account and put it in a crypto wallet, because they know once it leaves their system, or at least they knew it wasn't coming back probably. Right. And so
well said.
Step number one is we're going into a sovereign world with sovereign assets and sovereign custody, which is very radically different than the pooled fractional reserve lending Federal Reserve model, where they get to issue all the money, no accountability, no transparency. They're the rule makers, and we just sit down, shut up, and obey. That system's going away.
Thank you. Yes, and thank God for that, literally, and thank President Trump. invited, selected, and supported by the great United States military and white hats
Amen.
for
Amen.
getting us through this incredible transition. You've raised a lot of important issues, and I do this quite often, and I do this for the benefit of myself and our audience, because I know our audience learned a few things, but they have questions, and they're hoping I ask these questions as a follow-up. Therefore, I'm going to.
Okay.
I got 3 or 4 things that drove by as you were speaking, and I'm known to take notes. The trolls that don't like me say, you're not supposed to be taking notes. You're a show host. Okay, well, you know what? I'm taking notes. All right, so let me say this. You spoke about the wallet. Okay, and you used a lot of terminology of which I'm familiar with, but I want to break that down a little bit, a few notches down, even more layman for all of us. What comes to mind for people is how safe is my wallet. Now, if you can just spend a moment and differentiate. You spoke about 2 different types of wallets. You used some terminology. Let's break that down and do speak to the encryption, the level of encryption and safety for us, and then parallel it to the mess we're in today.
Sure. And so a wallet is, if you think of it as a digital lockbox, and cryptography is just security and software. The game that the evil principalities want to play is to steal your identity, steal your property, steal your authority, go through your personal effects, look at everything that you have, and basically be able to keep an eye on you. They built an internet global communication surveillance system that is so vast that a 75-year-old grandma texting the wrong thing to her granddaughter, 7 states away, can get her account shut down, or the British MPs will knock on her door because she said a word they didn't like. I mean, why do they do this, John? They do it because they understand truth is their poison. If they can't control our communications and mute and censor us, then they lose control. That's one of the things that they're scared about the most. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to a wallet provides an ability to have secretive spending patterns and secretive gifting and secretive transfers in a way that the government can't track and trace, and marketing companies can't take a look at your travel pattern, your spending pattern, whether you're eating too much meat, using too much energy, driving too many cars, buying the wrong books. They need to be able to do this surveillance thing with you. So one of the reasons that cryptographic wallets exist is so that I can be a sovereign. I can have privacy. I can have property. I can exchange with who I want to. It's kind of started out as a divine principles meet sovereign yearning and a rebellion. Stop spying on us. Stop tracking me. Stop regulating me. Stop monetizing me for free and then selling my data to every kind of product manufacturer in the world based on my zip code, my social security number, my date of birth, my sociographic profile. I mean, we've all had those things where we're talking about a trip to the Bahamas or something. Next thing you know, your websites are filled with nothing but cruise ships and trips to the Bahamas, because they're listening, they're selling, and they're marketing, and they're stealing our privacy. Right?
It's the Truman Show, and we're the star.
Right. And without even knowing it.
Yeah, let's break down a few more things before I take us into new territory. You spoke a few moments ago about the new banks. In other words, we'll have our wallets. They're safely encrypted. We've got our sovereignty. You've laid that groundwork down. And you said some of the new banks will come aboard. Let's have a discussion about new banks versus old banks. The way I look at it, I'm KISS, keep it simple, Sam. Right? So break this down for us. We got the central bank system, and we know the big 5, and then all the central banks within, which are franchised out, to use that word, all over the world, and that's the system we are desperate.
We'll call it the correspondent banking system. You got central banks at the top, and then you got layers of correspondent bankers that go all the way down. So
all right, so the correspondent bankers under the hierarchy of the central bank system, the Federal Reserve, and the whole package. So let me ask you this: once we have transitioned, yes, the system may be set and ready and functioning at certain levels, but until we're all in it, we're not there. We're still in parallel economies and parallel systems. Last time I checked, everybody still has green dollars in their wallets. So, and the wallet is in their back pocket or in their purse. So we're not transitioned yet, but we're going to be. So when we are, talk about new banks versus old banks, because I've been pondering this, because we know that the central bank system today wants a central bank digital currency. We know President Trump has a bill that we hope passes in 2026 that says we're not going to be involved in that. Now, since the Federal Reserve, as you well stated, is a private for-profit entity that's not a U.S. corporation even, that doesn't have our best interest in mind, and there is no reserve, since that's the case, they can do whatever they want. And since we're at war, and one of the battles we are fighting is the economic one, which is one of the major battles, follow the money. So this is important to spend a moment on. When we're in that new system, when we've been triggered to get into it, and everyone makes those moves, and I know there's a million questions there too. Maybe we'll save that for another broadcast. So the question is, the central banks that remain, well, they can do whatever they want because we're over here now. Screw you. What will they do? Is it as simple terms like that? Will they trap some of the depositors that didn't move out and capture them in a central bank digital currency? They can do a central bank digital currency, in my opinion, whether there's a law or not. If they're a private company, they can do whatever they want. So maybe I'm disillusioned. Certainly, I'm not very well informed on this, but it's a question on my mind. What happens where people are banking today if they don't jump into the new system when that time comes? And you mentioned new banks, I'll say, versus old banks. What happens to the brick and mortar banking system, to the best of your knowledge or speculation?
Sure. John, people need to understand the fractional reserve lending model. What that is it allows them to create and print money out of thin air with no accountability, with no transparency, with no collateral. Okay, so you and I go in, we've got $1,000 extra in our paycheck at the end of the month, and we put it in the savings account in the bank. We put $1,000 in the bank, and they can loan out $9,000. They can ramp that up by a factor of 10. Okay, now they can loan those $9,000 that showed up out of nowhere and charge 8% interest on a $1,000 deposit that I put in the bank. Okay, they'll give me 2% or 1.5% on my passbook, and then they'll loan out $9,000 at 8% on the $1,000 because the rules say they can, and they wrote the rules. Okay, First of all, that's a fraud. It's counterfeiting. It's a cartel. They wrote their rule book in Jekyll Island in 1910. They passed it into law in 1913, and we have been living under this counterfeiting cartel system since 1913. It's all a fraud, all of it. So yes, in a binary world, John, we cannot operate in a world where 50% of the money floating around is cartel money, 50% stable coins backed by treasury bills, 50% of the money has 100% one-to-one collateral and is inspected every 30 days, according to the New York Department of Financial Services, and the other half is just Pelosi bucks and Schumer bucks, and they can do whatever they want. They can set up any rules. No, we either have a nation of laws and we have a system, or we don't. You can't be pregnant and not pregnant at the same time. You can't have counterfeit Federal Reserve notes and stablecoin RLUSDs backed by one-to-one collateral with accountability and inspectability every 30 days. You can't have both systems running, John. It's impossible. Correct. So look, I was asking someone the other day, we're getting rid of illegal aliens that have no jurisdiction, that have no right to be here. They came into our country. They're not sovereign. They're not citizens. Is it more important to get rid of a non-sovereign, non-domestic foreign NGO that counterfeits, poisons, kills, and destroys us, or a 29-year-old illegal that's doing dishwashing somewhere and we send him back, but we're going to let the asshole stay? No, this Federal Reserve doesn't. Yes, exactly. But the Federal Reserve doesn't have any entitled right to live in the District of Columbia, which is a sovereign state, not even part of our Constitution in the first place. So we'd have a
Right.
new sheriff. We got a new sheriff in town. You know, we're going,
Mhm.
I guess at the fundamental level, John, for people that haven't been paying attention and the news isn't going to tell us, we are no longer a corporation. We are no longer the United States of America, Inc., headquartered in the District of Columbia by the venture capitalists
Correct.
known as the City of London and the Vatican City. We're going back to a constitutional republic with a treasury,
Hmm.
and the treasury is the boss, and the Federal Reserve is a bad nightmare going away. So
Correct.
the look at the old adage in the scripture says you can't pour old wine into a new sack. We're not going to put Federal Reserve counterfeit fake notes into a digital ledger technology system that can travel from point to point cryptographically and settle and ledger in 3 to 5 seconds. We can't, those two don't mix. It's like oil and water. They simply cannot mix. And if we're going to level the playing field in 195 countries, we have to have one definition for stablecoin, whether it's Brazil or Japan or America or Italy or Russia. A stablecoin has to be a stablecoin, has to be a stablecoin, so that the values are the values. And then when we do a trade agreement or we do a tariff agreement, we don't have somebody the day after the ink is dry on the tariff agreement giving us something that's worth 75 cents on the dollar based on what we signed 2 days ago because they printed their currency to the moon and they diluted their currency. And now they're paying us up with cheaper money that they just counterfeited out of thin air. So if we're going to level the playing field, John, and have interoperability among nations, and 195 nations are going to play by the same set of rules on an interoperable basis, we have to have sound, stable money that's verifiably stable, and we can't have sporadic counterfeiting operations anywhere if they want to participate on that system.
Hmm. It reminds me of something Juan O'Savin recently reported on a show I did with him and perhaps other shows as well, I would imagine. Uh, he reported his eyes and his people's eyes physically saw 17,000 pallets with 100 million US dollars on each. And they have great reason to speculate that there's actually 100,000 pallets, and they're trying to get their eyes set on that too. Now, as I understood in the discussion I had with Juan, these pallets were in the hands of the cabal, the deep state, to dump into the marketplace to completely collapse us, force us into a central bank digital currency, create by hyperinflating the currency out of existence. Juan, of course, as you may or may not know, was one of a few individuals during the Reagan administration that helped bring down the Russian ruble, thus leading to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So Juan knows a thing or two about this. Thank goodness we have our eyes on these pallets and we're able now to prevent this from occurring. But that's how serious this war is. And that brings me to gold. So let's further discuss the currency itself. The United States dollar is what we have today, which is, as you said, debt. Money is debt. Funny money, Federal Reserve, nothing to do with our constitutional currency that we once had. So let's discuss the U.S. dollar as it sits today, Federal Reserve note, to a gold-backed stable coin into the QFS. To me, that seems to be a process. The Trump family, seemingly spearheaded by Eric Trump, he's out there on mainstream financial shows as well as in our spaces. Eric Trump is well invested, the Trump family, into American Bitcoin. He did a video showing us the warehouses of mining Bitcoin and so forth. So while some say Bitcoin will crash, and we've recently experienced a big correction in XRP, Bitcoin, and others, what are your views about Bitcoin now and as we evolve into the new system? And we're going to talk about other cryptos in a minute, but comment on Bitcoin, if you will.
Well, I give tremendous credibility. We have to understand Bitcoin white paper showed up in January of 2009, about the same time the immaculate president from Hawaii was being brought into office, and right after we had the great 2008 financial crisis. So all of a sudden you brought in this white paper from a mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto, and you had a bunch of cool hipster, technocratic, libertarian, cool guys all starting to market it, right? And the economy as we knew it died in 2008 when it crashed. We were basically, since 2008, 2009, we've had zero interest rate policies. They called it ZERP. They dropped the interest rates to zero. I think Citibank went to $2 a share, dollar a share. The market had flatlined. They bought in the closer, Obama, who wasn't American, who wasn't even an American citizen, and they used a CIA prop to bring him in to, smooth talk us into death, right, and divide us and tear us apart as a nation. They put the interest rates at zero. Obama couldn't manage a McDonald's. But when your interest rates are zero and everything's kind of set up on autopilot in the swamp, all you got to do is go out and read the script and sell your BS, right? It's not really hard to run an economy at 0%. Look at what they do to Trump. They put him at 6 or 5.5%. They don't want him to have success because they need to defame him. But so my point being, Bitcoin was the grandfather of the narrative. It was distributed ledger technology on a blockchain. The concepts were fantastic. Get rid of the middleman. Put transparency in.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let someone steal, deflate, skim, take their money off of. Don't let the central bankers set the rules. Let us be sovereign citizens with our own wallets. Wonderful idea, wonderful concept. The problem is they promise us the sun, the moon, and the stars and 30 different things it could do, from bake your cake to cook your dinner to be a source of payments to do all of these sort of things. And it's down to about 2 now. Okay, it cannot do smart contracts. The cost of transaction is expensive. It takes 20 minutes to close a transaction. The mathematics of the matter, John, is that if every person in the world wanted to try to do a transaction on Bitcoin, they would be entitled to do exactly 2 or 3 in their entire lifetime, just based on the processing mathematics. So is there a value there? Of course. It takes a lot of energy to create one, but is it going to be the value that's going to allow us to have utility and scalability and a trustworthy monetary system that's built on top of Bitcoin? Not a chance in this world. Could it be potentially wrapped so then it could transport itself in 3 to 5 seconds across the XRP ledger in some sort of a wrapper that gives it a tokenization ability so that it's got the frictionless speed and the atomic settlement, and smart contracts can be attached to the wrapper so that it could then work? And then if you have a limited supply of 21 million Bitcoin and it can actually have utility. And John Michael, this is not just me speaking. Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter and Cash App, has said, if Bitcoin doesn't figure out the payment things, it dies. That's Jack Dorsey, not Rob Cunningham. Okay.
So what do you make of the Trump family making such a substantial investment in Bitcoin? It's got to have some stable role somehow in this, and it's a bit above my pay grade. Can you comment on that? Because the Trumps, while nobody's perfect and they have made mistakes over time, they're far and few, especially in something of this magnitude.
I think they may have an understanding of how the utility may be brought to bear that's different than what exists right now. An agreement, a partnership, a future state of Bitcoin wrapped, how it's going to work. There's also models that talk about how Bitcoin can make it profitable for energy developers and energy drillers to, if they can use some of that excess energy, then when they're exploring areas they wouldn't otherwise explore, but be incentivized because they use that excess energy to mine Bitcoin, and then they get paid in Bitcoin to do a little bit more energy exploration. There could be a trade-off there where it becomes a store of energetic value, just like a diamond takes a lot of money to get it out of the ground, find it, dig it, purify it, cut it, clean it. It's the labor and the expense to make that diamond hit a jewelry store and get on a ring. It's not necessarily the rock itself, but it's all the effort and time and energy expended to get the rock.
Right.
And then there's a marketing demand for it. So there's a similar parallel in Bitcoin in that it could, like baseball cards, if there's only 21 Pete Rose cards, then all of a sudden supply and demand is going to make those 21 Pete Rose cards go up. If there's only 21 million Bitcoin and there is some value in it, there could always be a market for people to want to own Bitcoin. But in comparison to a utility token that's an ISO 20022 compliant with the language and the protocols and the functionality and the smart contracts and the ability to move the RLUSD all around the world and transport the new digital dollar that the Treasury is issuing, Bitcoin will never be able to do that. Bitcoin can't be the co-pilot to an RLUSD and follow every dollar around the world and transcribe on the ledger where every penny of every dollar ever traveled from into the government and out of the government. XRP can do that, but Bitcoin can't.
Yes. Well, let me comment briefly about baseball just for a sidebar. You mentioned 21 Pete Rose cards. I'm not a fan of what Hollywood puts out by and large for many years now. And I haven't watched TV basically since I'm like 15. So I have a library of films that I've downloaded, paid for at Apple TV. And so last night, just something inspired me to watch the movie 61, which was the homers, amount of home runs Roger Maris hit when he broke the record back in the day. Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, produced by Billy Crystal. Great film, has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I enjoyed it very much last night. That leads us to XRP, which you were just dovetailing into. So, folks, the way I look at the Bitcoin, based on all the guests we interview, including Rob today, don't bet the farm on Bitcoin and stay educated. So let's talk about the XRP, Ripple, XLM maybe. From what I've learned, I'm a fan of XRP. I own XRP. So I want to ask you, I've come to learn that there are someone said seven cryptos that will play a part in the new system, and backed up the reason why these 7 cryptos are going to be part of that system. It would stand to reason to me, these are the cryptos people should be looking into. What can you comment about the cryptos that you would favor and why?
John, I cannot emphasize more what you just said. I like to recommend that people look at those top 8 coins that do their very best to adhere to this universal language. What happens is, John, if you think of the ISO 20022, why does that matter? Because for transparency to happen, you have to have mathematical certainty in order to track and trace everything. You need to know who's the sender, who's the receiver, what's the transaction fee, what's the FX rate, is John and it was Rob, or somebody spoofing me or somebody spoofing you? Do you really have the assets? All of that packet of information that travels across. The old SWIFT system would be like, yeah, money went from A to B, information on file. You need a question, go call us. And Monday through Friday, the hours are, your hold is 17 minutes. You had to go dig and find in an opaque blockbuster piece of paper, PDF document somewhere, if a transfer got lost, or how much was the fee, or who sent it, or what. All of the details of that language of moving value is now required in that one-day cutover that took place right on November the 20th or 22nd, or was it November 22nd? The actual anniversary date of JFK being assassinated was the switchover date for ISO 20022. Funny, huh? We have to have 100% transparent. JFK wanted to print money out of the Treasury in silverback dollars, and they killed him for it. He said he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. They don't want to be seen, and they don't want to be held accountable. How ironic is it that the software regulation that mandates not only the transparency of each transaction, but all of the details around that transaction so it can be validated and verified. XRP, John, is a network of decentralized consensus validators. They're called UNL nodes. So the validation and verification process requires 80% or more of these decentralized nodes to verify all aspects of a transaction before they allow it to be atomically settled and ledgered on the book. So the decentralization of the truth of the record and all parties involved means, John, They have to know that you're you and not
Mhm.
me. Or they can't give a
Yeah.
validation. They can't say good enough. Well, I hope I got it right. I hope somebody didn't hack into John's account and send it to a wallet that's not really Rob's. I mean,
Mhm.
so for mathematical certainty to take place, John, all variables in the equation must exist. That means they have to have a real ID of Rob and a
Yes.
real ID of John, or otherwise you've got a counterfeit Rob and a counterfeit John. So then the
Mhm.
wallet has to be real, the assets have to be real, the receiver's wallet has to be real, the FX rate, the transaction rate, the settlement. If you're going to put an oath on the record and testify, I swear that that was an accurate transfer of title, a real world asset from John to Rob. Well, you can't do it because you feel like it's close enough. It's either mathematically accurate or it's not. And if you ledger
Mhm.
something and attest to it on the public ledger that I sent you $100, at 9:21 p.m. Eastern time, and I didn't do it, you're committing fraud. You're attesting to something
Right.
under oath that you can't verify actually happened. So
Mhm.
every variable in this wealth transfer system on this QFS, this distributed ledger technology system, John, can't be left to chance or hope or finger crossing. If actual
Yeah.
value is going to switch from person to person, entity to entity, or party to party in 3 to 5 seconds, you have to have all the variables so the algorithms can run and 80% of the validators can say that's an accurate transaction.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're trusting
Yeah.
bankers to do a good job.
Yeah. I think last time I checked, and if you survey the audience and say, do you think Wall Street and banks have Main Street's best interest in mind? They'll laugh you right out of the room. But I want to comment on a different aspect of this. It's sort of something we would more discuss on a different type of program, but it's noteworthy here, and we'll move on to the next question. You know, as I'm listening to you describing a rather complex transition that many of us are trying to get a grip on, you've done a great job explaining things. One of the benefits we see here, folks, think about it. Didn't Barry Soetoro load up a plane in the dark of the night with pallets and pallets of cash to an enemy state country? Oh yeah, that won't be able to happen anymore. Didn't the bankers fund both sides of most of these wars and left the profits all the way to the bank? No pun intended. Oh yeah. What about the gun running? And the drugs, and what about the children? What about the human trafficking and children sex trafficking and all of that stuff? All of these things require what? Money.
Secrecy
And money
and
has to do
secrecy.
what? It has to move somewhere to get these activities funded. This is God's work. He's got the right team in place. God's light is shining all over this now. That's what's happening, folks. And he gave Donald Trump the flashlight of the universe to help him get the job done. And that's what we are doing. And it's an amazing time to be alive. A little passionate here. Let's talk about, Rob, the repatriation of wealth. Another fascinating component to this global financial reset that we are in the middle of transitioning through. So, let's see where I can go with this. Yeah, okay. President Trump is talking about a $2,000 rebate or dividend or whatever it may be defined as. At the end of the day, the people just want the 2,000. So the $2,000 has been sort of pledged by the president to hit the people's bank accounts. I think he said by June or July. And if I'm misquoted, someone will let me know. So we have that component. I see it as a slow rollout to what will be a very responsible series of repatriations for the rest of our lives. You've got the St. Germain Trust money, 160 trillion is a number that I've been told. You've got the gold from the Vatican that's been shuffled out of there since Linwood told us about that at the Reawaken tour many years ago. You've got fraudulent presidencies going back, as far as I've come to understand, as far back as Clinton, and recently reported by Sheila Holm, and she can support this information, but as far back as George Herbert Walker Bush, thus rendering null and void executive orders, policies, and laws, never mind the auto pen from the imposter that occupied and stole our White House in 2020. You have all of this going on, and some say illegal Federal Reserve and IRS, the contracts, mortgage contracts, some credit card agreements, a lot of things beyond the currency itself were also fraudulently done. So because of all of that I just put together in some stew on the stove, we have wealth repatriation, in my view, sort of a equating to the Bible's what's the term, to debt forgiveness. Okay,
Jubilee.
what do you know about all of Jubilee? Thank you so much. The Jubilee. And you got Nasara Gasara, and which Trump doesn't utter those words, but we see a lot of those things being implemented. So I've set up a question here. The question is geared around repatriation of wealth. Since so much wealth has been stolen, the profiting off of our birth certificate, the money as debt, fraudulent contracts, so forth and so on, and all the assets being captured. It seems to me that the $2,000 Trump is telling us, President Trump, Dan Scavino, I mean, they're not even being indirect anymore. They're being rather direct. The Federal Reserve and the IRS, as we know it, is coming to an end. There'll be a treasury-backed currency, as we've been discussing, secure the dollar by gold and other assets, move it to a stable coin, get it up in the wallet, so forth and so on. Okay, so that's the best layman's explanation of what you've been more properly defining for us. So now the question is repatriation. Very important. We don't want to mislead the public. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And truth being told, we don't know exactly either. But you have some good views about this. I've had retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, spent decades in the military in multiple capacities, as well as a comptroller for the DoD at some point. He laid down a scenario about how much money, based on age and other formulas, that is coming to all of us. That is a lot to throw out, but I had to set it up. And now I'm going to pipe down and listen to you, Rob Cunningham, share with us what your views are on repatriation of wealth, because it's justified in God's law, if you will. It's justified in proper law once we get our constitutional republic fully restored. And you can't do that, folks, with a Federal Reserve note in play. President Trump said, I'm going to give you back your country. I'm going to restore the power back to the people. Well, that man has kept his promises, and you cannot deliver that finitely and fully without the abolishing of that Fed note and moving forward. So repatriation, what do you see happening? And in your crystal ball, I don't expect you to have all the finite answers, but you can weigh in on this. Is money coming back to we the people? If so, in your estimation, when, how, and so forth?
Yes, yes, and yes. John, you hit the nail on the head. We have to go back to a sovereign nation. We cannot be a corporation. That's back to 1871 type of tomfoolery, the Organic Act of 1871 that then started the way down the road to EIN numbers, tax identification numbers, birth certificate numbers, social security numbers, Dun and Bradstreet numbers. I mean, there's not a courthouse, there's not a judge, there's not a system that moves in this country that's not monetized with some kind of number so they can tax it and control it. That's not a sovereign nation. That is a captured entity. Okay, so yes, we are going back to a sovereign country. Biblically speaking, we can say over a certain period of time, the wages of, the wealth stolen from the righteous will be returned to us. When the wicked store up their riches and ill-gotten gains, there will be a return of wealth to the righteous, period. But let's look at what we're going to do just right away, John. We're going to lose income tax, right? We're going to have 1% interest rates. The two most
that is
important
a huge. I never interrupted. I got to stop for 1 second, folks. And Robert's going to repeat that. Do you have any idea how huge this is? This is something no one in their wildest imagination thought would ever happen. That's why I said G. Edward Griffin deserves that medal, because he laid the groundwork. That book is the Bible of this subject. But sorry to interrupt, but this is a huge, huge deal, folks. This is tyranny. Well, we've had shackling us from the cradle to the grave, laughing at us while doing it, coming to an end. I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about that. I'm amazed. I'm 67 years old, and I'm able to see this start to occur. Sorry to interrupt, Rob.
No, John, it's the greatest thing in the world. This is the greatest time to be alive in human history in context. to understand what is happening, what we're leaving and what we're gaining back, what we're restoring, the sovereignty in every sense of that word, in every aspect of our life, our family, our purpose, our community, our money, our wealth, our future, our kids and grandkids' inheritances. The agency that we get back with sovereignty is mind blowing, John. I mean, it's like
Yes.
let's see what we already know is happening. Okay, we already know
Okay.
that counterfeiting and inflation is theft. It's a debasement of our currency. We lose our purchasing power every time they just keep printing money. That's going away. The two most expensive things people ever buy, almost all people ever buy in their lifetime, is a home. And the second most expensive thing is the financing of the home. We're going to see home prices drop and interest rates go to 1%. We're going to see the two most expensive things get cut in half. We're going to see income taxes go away. We're going to see inflation go away because they can't debase it with fractional reserve lend. A stable coin kills fractional reserve lending. It's over. So now all of a sudden, some of the most expensive, when you cut energy costs down to nothing, or 0 point energy comes to a backyard near you, or a roof near you, or a cornfield near you, and energy is decentralized like money and education and media becomes decentralized. Yes. That in and of itself, if nothing else ever happened, John, we'd have the greatest wealth revolution in the history of mankind. But yes, we're going to get the gold. We're going to get the sound money. We're going to stop this wealth extraction system that has milked our labor, given us paper with ink on it, and then sent our treasures around the world to other countries to defend their borders while they try to tear ours down. They have extracted wealth from us, sent it all over the world, laughed at us while they did it, tore our borders down, inflated our country so we forget our heritage. We don't know our identity as a nation or as a people. All of that's going to stop. Sound money is coming back. Sovereignty is coming back. Income taxes are going away. Interest rates are dropping. Central banking, fractional reserve lending is going away. That in and of itself is almost incalculable to understand the wealth effect that will have for all of us. To be able to keep the fruits of our labor, keep it full stop. Stop
Absolutely.
the theft.
Absolutely. And the Fed. Ron Paul ran on that campaign all the time. I supported his campaign. I knew he was unelectable, but I was going on principle. And the Fed. A couple of things come to mind. Michael Savage published the book many years ago. He was right. Borders, language, and culture. You just talked about how they stripped that away. Savage was right on that deal. On the topic of repatriation of wealth, and then we're going to probably wrap the show up with one more topic. But on the subject of repatriation of wealth, would you concur that and here's something interesting. Isn't it going to be nice down the line soon to not be identified as the taxpayer? Taxpayer. Think about that. That's a title we've been right on our forehead, branded like cattle. Taxpayer. Okay. Anyway, would you concur that every taxpayer, to use that term now because it communicates well this situation, every Social Security card carrying taxpayer, not the illegal aliens and all that other noise, you and me and everyone like you and me in this country, whether they're just born a minute ago or they're 100 years old or older, everyone who's alive with a Social Security number who's been paying taxes will, to your best of your knowledge, is there a system of repatriation in place for every one of these individuals? And if so, I'm keep it simple, Sam. It has to be done responsibly or violates universal laws, violates the laws of money and exchange. It can create hyperinflation if people are just given stuff and don't understand the value of things, and that whole space. That's a lot to take on, but what's your views and comments? First off, the direct question, will everyone from the cradle to the grave with Social Security number be the recipient of wealth being repatriated? That's the question. And if so, is it going to be done in a responsible way?
I believe absolutely yes. I believe. Look, when we first of all, we have a country, I think it's Norway, that has a sovereign wealth fund that's 1/40th of our size and has one that's like $14 trillion in a sovereign wealth fund, and they're 1/40th of our size. How does that work? A sovereign wealth fund combined with Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, talking about how his goal is to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet. And now we're going to have a sovereign wealth fund. And you mentioned earlier Executive Order 13818 and 848. What about all these people that committed treason and sedition? Are the citizens of America going to own those assets that were forfeited back to the Treasury? And where would the Treasury actually park those assets? Where would the underground oil, the precious, the rare earth minerals, where would Dominion Software cash, the Federal Reserve stolen cash, the MSNBC treasonous people? How about the Politico how about the money printing operation that gave the CIA money, who then they distributed fake money to 55,000 NGOs to lie to us? Was that tradition? Was that treason and sedition? What's going to happen to the property of 55,000 NGOs that were in the biggest RICO operation in human history to lie to us, to keep us in a perpetual state of war, sickness, and death? Are they going to get to keep all their property?
You've answered my question beyond the beyond. And what comes, thank you, Rob. And, the light bulbs have gone off for me. You've moved a few boxes around in that dirty closet with a micro flashlight and found something I hadn't. I knew it at one level, but I really see it now. And it brings me to Dell. There's a perfect case in point. Bill Gates, Zuckerberg. You really think Dell and that, I don't know, that woman, God bless her, but something was going on there. With these two individuals out of nowhere, and the president standing there and them being nice people to give us $6 billion. Yeah, Executive Orders 13818 and 13848. Thank you very much. Same thing with Bill Gates. Climate change isn't really, I made a mistake, and Zuckerberg acquiescing at the dinner. I've said this before on other shows, but very applicable to what you just stated here. Okay, so there's repatriation of wealth coming, folks. It's justified. It's within the universal laws, and it's going to benefit each and every one of us. And that leads me to this subject. We have the hugely successful External Revenue Service already in motion to replace the Internal Revenue Service, and that, of course, namely and mainly being the hugely successful tariffs, which, of course, was heavily attacked, and even some people within the MAG movement, oh, no, it's no good. Okay, well, look, they were wrong, and Trump was right, and the tariffs are huge. A number's been recently reported, I believe, by the president. It was a drive-by clip I caught. I think there's an estimated $20 trillion that have been identified that is in here and en route over the next several years from tariffs, from committed money from foreign countries, including Saudi Arabia, to manufacture and invest here, as well as our own corporations bring stuff back. Never mind exploration in oil and gas, now that the majority of the ridiculous regulations have been removed, and so forth and so on. Then you talk about what Rob just said to me is the highlight of this show. And there's been so many highlights on this show, and the sizzle reels, I hope, catch that later, is this all of these individuals and corporations and entities and so forth and so on. I mean, the amount of dollars, billions, trillions, it's a lot of money. And those executive orders trap them legally. Executive orders, they got them. And that's what's been happening behind the scenes. The reason why over these last, I don't know, certainly 5 years, that you've heard about all these executives and CEOs retiring early. Yeah, they're retiring early, all right. Deal done. The money's coming back, folks, and it's good news. And that leads me to perhaps our final wrap up here. With all of that going on, and all of that is good news, we now have a better understanding why the president, when he was running for the 2024 election, and of course everyone knows the dash between 45 and 47, what that means. And we could thank Derek Johnson for that narrative.
Yes, sir.
Very much so. But here we are when he was running, to play the game for the 2024 election to be reseated in the public eye and so forth and so on. Brent mentioned the term the golden age. The golden age of America, I would add, and thus the world in time, is coming. So golden age, to me, in part means with all these shackles lifted, and you covered media and information and money and all of these things. With these shackles gone, and we know, someone once said, the truth will set you free. We know that the truth will set us free. And for the first time, we're going to be living in a world of truth at every level from top to bottom. And that is an extraordinary thing. So to me, the golden age means the spirit of Christ, the Christ consciousness, the spirit within us, the light that shines in every soul of which we are. I'll use this expression. Some people don't like it, but I find it very accurate, very simple. We're spiritual beings having this human experience, and this human experience was supposed to be as God intended. And it's become a prison planet for each and every one of us from the cradle to the grave. And you should be lucky and grateful that you are alive today, because it's coming to an end. So having said that, what is a golden age? Also a world without war? Now, we're not there yet. I'm in Thailand. They're dropping bombs an hour from me right now between Cambodia and Thailand. The Thai government is, and I don't get into too much Thai politics because I live here and there are some restrictions with regards to speech, with regards to government. But I will safely say this. The Thai government is very independent. They've never been colonized by anybody. They've kept their language, border, and culture, and they're having this issue with Cambodia. I'm not going to get into the tit for tat or any of that stuff. All I hope and pray is that they welcome our president and commander-in-chief, the supreme commander-in-chief of the Global Defense Alliance, to come back to the table with Malaysia and calm this stuff down. Stop killing each other. But having said that, I do believe, and we've seen what the president has done, Rob, ending 7 or 8 large-scale conflicts. We've got Ukraine to finish off. I do believe part of the golden age is a world without war. You've inspired me to unleash myself here. You're the guest. So what's your take on the golden age? Is it dawning? Will it be officially birthed in July 4th, 2026? What's your view of the golden age and the time frame for us to begin to flourish and prosper as God intended in that golden age?
Well, John, you hit the nail on the head, brother. You said the 2 words, in part. We talk about the physical gold, but we could talk about the golden principles of laws and principles created by the divine creator. Those golden principles are what is going to enrich us more than anything. They use the phrase, the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. The most valuable, important wealth that was stolen from us was our identity. So we have to get our identity back. That's a wealth transfer beyond any dollar amount in your bank account. Who we are and whose we are has to be restored. So there are golden principles of the great I am, the kingdom within, who I am, whose I am, my relationship. A membership in a church is a membership in a church. It's not a relationship with the Creator. Just because you give 10% and sign a piece of paper to sit in the pew doesn't mean you have a relationship or a walk with our Heavenly Father, right? And if I check my history book, one of the 3 assassins that killed Jesus Christ were the church people, the bankers, and the politicians. So Jesus spoke of religion one time in the New Testament. He said, stay the hell away from it. Don't do it. So there's a difference between faith and religion. Religion
Absolutely.
divides us more than anything in the world. We have 47,000 denominations of Christianity alone. Mm-hmm. Faith and golden principles with, like you said, we are spiritual beings with a human body. Just because I tell my girls, if I gotten both my legs chopped off and one of my arms, would I still be your dad? Of course I would. I mean, I have a body, but I am a spiritual being. So it's those spiritual laws that are the golden truths of those spiritual laws is what we've got to get back to. That being said, these golden principles of math is math, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. The ability to Are we going to trust in corporations? Are we going to trust in Federal Reserve? I mean, the birth certificate of America, the Declaration of Independence, was that we recognized in a covenant, in a love letter, 56 men signed a love letter to God saying we recognize where all our rights come from. The founders of the central banking system, Mayor Amstel Rothschild, was a Marxist and an atheist, and he said, I care not who makes a nation's laws as long as I can print the money, because he understood how he could pervert man. So we have a nation built on a love letter to God that got superimposed by Marxists and atheists to put their money system on us to enslave us spiritually, monetarily, in every other way. They enslaved us. So you've got to first stop the sewage, which is the artificial money and the lie system and the wealth extraction system coming into our nation. First, do no harm, kick these guys out. It's not money, it's a fraud. The dollar system it says two things on the dollar. It says United States on it, and it says Federal Reserve note. It's not a dollar. They borrowed the name dollar to appease us, but in functionality and reality, it's a debt note. It's a contract. It's an IOU, and if I have that IOU in my pocket, and I owe it back to them, and I'm attached to all the strings connected to that contracting thing called a Federal Reserve note, and anything that comes out of Washington, D.C., I'm now on the hook for because I'm contracting with them by using that debt instrument. The whole apparatus is the biggest fraud we've ever seen, and you have to cut all of those strings to go. President Trump used to talk about the reason tariffs were the most beautiful word in the dictionary was we used to have committees and councils to figure out how to give away all of our excess wealth prior to 1913. We didn't know what to do with all the money and wealth Americans had, and we had no income tax. We had no Federal Reserve, but we had more wealth than we knew what to do with. I mean, we are going to have that type of abundance in America again without it, but it was true wealth, true labor, true productivity. John, what do you think the Sovereign Wealth Fund will be worth when 6,500 patents that Nikola Tesla created get put and parked in that Sovereign Wealth Fund, and the dividends that come from that accrue to the shareholders known as citizens of the United States of America? How much wealth for the next 1,000 years is going to be spun off of Nikola Tesla's patents that they stole and hid and or have been used in, I don't know, directed energy weapons against us, weather modification systems. Who knows what they've been doing? But A, we know he created a lot. B, we know they stole them. C, we know that President Trump's favorite uncle audited them, and a whole bunch of boxes of stuff turned up missing after that audit. So we know that that's proprietary intellectual property that should redound to the benefit of all Americans and not the deep state to be weaponized against us. I tell people this all the time. If you think that the quantum, the computing, the access to computers that can calculate 1 trillion calculations a second, and the chat GPT that we have on this phone is anything other than kindergarten grade AI, do we have any idea what the government and the deep state has from a form of AI intelligence that we don't have? We've got the baby diaper version of AI here. What really exists out there in the world would blow our minds. And it will be.
Yes, I agree.
It's our property, John. It's our property because a great American named Nikola Tesla created it.
Yes.
The patent office stole it from him.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, great episode, Rob. You've been a phenomenal guest. We've launched something just the other day. I used to have it at American Media Periscope. It was once called Ask the Expert, but my good friend Dr. Sherry Tempen is using that term now, so I don't want to collide with the same message. So we're calling it a Patriot Q&A Hour, and we're launching that effective January, the new year, the golden age of America year dawning. And with that comes new things at JMC Broadcasting. And I'd love for you to, we'll invite you in as a guest. It's a 1 hour for premium members only, so we don't get the trolls in there, anybody wasting our time. People love the shows that we produce because we bring on great guests like you and we ask the right questions. And as I said at the beginning, this is not the National Enquirer version of news bites like a lot of folks put out there. We're getting down to what really matters. We're looking for the truth and we're bringing it to the people to the best of our ability. But the people want their questions answered because right now they're spectators viewing us. Now they're good spectators because they're getting good data and they can go research it and validate it on their own. So that's the relationship. But to our audience, I'm answering that call. Beginning January, we're going to do a monthly Patriot Q&A hour. So visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on premium, and learn all the benefits that are in there. And I'd love to invite you, Rob. Each month, it's me and a power guest on the screen. We're not doing speeches or doing interviews like this. We're going to stir the pot a little bit, and we're there for 1 solid hour to answer to our audience your questions. So hopefully, Rob, you'll be able to make yourself available at one point down the line. I'd love to have you in there because you've got a broad scope of knowledge of what's going on in this universe. And I think that is extremely important as because we're also not out of the woods yet. When, Juan O'Savin has told us our near-death experience has yet to hit, believe it or not, and that the currency's got a ways to go down before it gets stabilized and some other issues. And we see the messes across the streets of America now with ICE and the border and the lunatics and so forth and so on. But I want to close this show out. We'll say one more thing. We spoke about scarcity and abundance. Of course, our viewers know that God did not intend for us to live in a world of scarcity, but rather abundance. And you've laid it down very, very well that abundance is here and it's coming to a theater near you, folks. The show that I kicked off in the monologue, that show's curtain's coming down, and a new show and a new theater is coming up, and it's wonderful. And one more comment on the Federal Reserve note that you spoke about, what's on that dollar bill. I'll add to that. You're absolutely right, folks. What does it say? Federal Reserve note. What is a Federal Reserve? Let's break those words down. Federal Reserve is what? A for-profit bank or a criminal cartel, and a note is a debt. So it's a debt to that. That's what you got. And I encourage everyone to visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. It was my answer to the calling of my audience to speak more about the financial matters because I mostly go military and intelligence on the other side of everything. So visit wealthcoachuniversity.com to our viewers. There's a little library of videos there. Bill Still, I'm sure you know, Rob, about Bill Still's Money Masters from back in the day.
Yes.
Jekyll Island's up there. All of these videos that can take the sound bites of what Rob walked us through in the last hour and a half and the great little mini documentaries. Go there, learn more to validate everything Rob has just stated here. And in closing, as the show wraps up, talk with us, Rob, about your present activities, ventures, your mission, and where people can follow you and your work beyond your appearances on this show. And I sure would love to have you back, perhaps in the next couple of weeks, as things start to escalate, good and bad, have you back on this broadcast, and perhaps another panel. I've got to talk with you off air about that at some point. But how can people follow you? What is your mission, your ventures? What are you doing these days?
Well, John, thank you again for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure. My mission is doing exactly what I did tonight. I literally do not have a conflict of interest. I sponsor no one. No one sponsors me. I sell nothing. My website is not monetized. I'm not monetized. I don't have a conflict of interest. I've been blessed in my career with success and business, and I've got a 19-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old daughter, and I want to leave this place better for them. You know, a lot of things happened on our watch. You know, we kind of were born into a world of spiritual amnesia, and we're all waking up. So we got a lot of work to do. The old adage that the harvest is plenty and the workers are few. We got a lot of people to wake up and a lot of people to help educate. And, you know, for 20 plus years, my wife and I have owned a professional sales training and leadership development, business planning, strategy company. And I love to serve in teaching and educating and researching. And I've got an MIS, instructor pilot, financial services, you know, strategy brain. That's just kind of what God gave me. And I can't take it with me. So, die empty. My mission is to die empty, and that's just what I want to do. So people can follow me. I spend a great deal amount of time on X, and my call sign on X, or my username. You can look me up by my name, Rob Cunningham, or at Cool Show with no periods or anything, just at KUWLSHOW. And John, in the last few days, I on my pinned tweet on the top of my X account is a thread with 25 videos that I've produced in the last 5 to 6 weeks, and they're all under 10 minutes. But they're everything between spirituality to XRP to DLT to the Federal Reserve to why Ripple is replacing the Federal Reserve. Everything from leadership, culture, spirituality, cryptocurrency, the Federal Reserve, and all of these sort of things that we talked about today. I've found a niche where I can research, I can leverage AI, I can use AI video production and editing and content and research and communicate ideas through reading, writing, listening, and watching better than just a post or just writing an article. So everybody learns differently, but
Yes.
What I love more than anything is the responses that I'm getting to those 25 videos. They're all free, no email, no money, no pays, there's no tip bucket. There's no buy me a cigar, there's buy me a cup of coffee. There's none of that out there. So my blessing and gift is to just keep learning, keep growing, and keep giving. That's what I love to do.
Excellent. Well, there's a place you need to follow, folks, on X. That sounds phenomenal. 10 minute or less, 25 videos described as you just did on a variety of topics that are of absolute interest to everyone with eyes to see and ears to hear. I want to thank you very much, Rob Cunningham, for joining me. This has been an excellent episode, and we look forward to having you back. Thank you, and I'll be right back after this important announcement. Thank you, Rob.
What you need to know, and this is very important, that all precious metals are not created equal, and the same goes for the firms that sell them. What John Michael Chambers reveals in Module 3 is very, very important. Whether you already acquired gold or silver, or are considering acquiring gold or silver, yes indeed, buy gold, buy silver, buy now. But buyer, beware.
What an exciting time to be alive. The dawning of the golden age is upon us. GOOTS, G-O-O-T-S, get out of the system now. Action on your behalf is required. Be on the right side of history. Please visit all 10 free modules at wealthcoachuniversity.com and schedule your private one-on-one wealth coach consult with me, John Michael Chambers. I look forward to meeting with you. It's time.
Visit Module 3 at wealthcoachuniversity.com.
All right. I want to thank Rob once again. Great episode. Visit jamesbroadcasting.com. Our homepage has been completely revamped. By Christmas, the entire site will be brand new. Very functional, lean and mean. Easy to get around. It should resolve a lot of the questions I've been receiving in emails from everyone. If anyone would like to communicate with me, I can't answer all the emails, but the public email to contact me directly is john@jmcbroadcasting.com. I open that up once a week and answer as many as I possibly can. But do visit the website. There's 2 ways to remain informed, empowered, and connected with JMC Broadcasting, me and my team's work. And that is a free subscription, and it's defined when you click on that tab. And then there is now just launched the premium portal. You can click, learn more about that, and come on aboard and see what is about to launch in January of this year. This is a book I've just published. It's on Amazon.com. It's about a month old. Tremendous opportunities, strategies, models, the GOOTS model, get out of the system, and much more, including the advisor scorecard, are all outlined in a must-read and easy to read. I think it's about 80 some odd page book with a contributing chapter on crypto by our good friend Josh Reed. You can pick it up at Amazon.com. And of course, that and your premium portal support helps fuel the engine to help me continue to fund my team of 10 people and keep this platform up and running for everybody and to be expanded upon. This is an amazing time to be alive. Also, you can schedule a consult with me at wealthcoachuniversity.com. You visit that website, And those who would like a private wealth coach consult with me, there's a mechanism with which to do that. I can only do 8 appointments a month. There'll come a time where I'm going to have to pull this as a available service simply because of time constraints. Those that want to buy gold and silver, please do so. Visit jmcgenesismetals.com. Our partner there that helps fuel this engine, 1-800-200-4653. Ask for Bill Armour. And I'd like to leave you with this important short video clip from wealthcoachuniversity.com. And I'll see you next week on the GFR at Wednesday, every Wednesday live, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Next week, great show lined up. Bill Armour of Genesis Metals. Will Barney is coming back, and we're going to have on live, providing no tech issues this time, with the attorney from Bangkok to discuss the 3 million Thai bank accounts frozen, 86 million Vietnamese bank accounts frozen, and a commentary on the war between Cambodia and Thailand with attorney Benjamin Hart. Thank you all. A little bit of an extended broadcast. Thank my producers. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.